So Field Day. Every year, Field Day is a learning experience. Some of us got to brush up on our radio operating skills. Other of us learned different ways to camp. Maybe next time, get a tent out. The weather was actually better than expected. Make sure you get an air mattress, all kinds of things. So yeah, we learn all kinds of things going to Field Day every year. This year is no different. And so Jeff, KM6RGO, our esteemed Field Day chair, along with Smitty, WV1G, the Field Day co-chair, don't forget about him, going to tell us about what made Field Day this year a success and what we can look forward to next year. So with that, please welcome Jeff, KM6RGO, to the podium.
Well, Field Day, we do it every year. Like every year, it's a lot of fun. We got together and we got and played radio. And we make changes every year, it seems. So overall, we had great teamwork. There's some challenges in every year. We had great planned adaptations. I don't know if you remember Derek at W6DER, one of the staples for CW, had a last-minute plan to be able to go to Europe. So he came for part of Field Day, which was very nice of him. Set up his radio and did his part, and then left. But that was fine. We did great with that. As always, Georgetown Airport is a fantastic venue. Scott, if you're still here, thank you for setting everything up in the back. I mean, there's a lot of work that's done behind the scenes, I think, that folks don't really appreciate. So not only was the site super clean and nice and available, but the generator worked as always at charm, and among the other things, the hangar for VE sessions. So thank you for doing that, Scott. Also we had we modified our antenna and radio layout because of the changes from last year. And then we still had a GOTA focus. GOTA was a good station, and then plenty of great food. Very well prepared, very nicely done. So again, great participation. We did have a pretty good turnout, which was nice. GOTA was well attended. We only had 5 youth that got on the air. There were only 8. The Cub Scout or the Boy Scout group that we had last year were doing something else. We didn't get another Boy Scout group. That would have been nice to round up. But what we did have were a lot of new hams that got time to really learn how to contest. They took their time on the radio. So we got to rotate through a bunch of new folks. And they got hooked. One of them's here. We had some DX contacts from Japan, Brazil, Ukraine, Italy, Korea, Puerto Rico. Quite a few to Puerto Rico, I noticed in the logs. Cuba, and England. And we had over 100 people, 8 youth total that were running around, and actually probably a couple more that didn't get counted or logged in. And a VE session, of course, in the hangar, which is, I still think it's probably the coolest VE session in all of ham radio, anywhere in the country. Very cool. So here's what we did for scoring. Now, a little down on CW. There, for a little while, Derek was working on his power supply, so one of the CW stations was down. He got it fixed and back up and running.
And the ants.
And the ants. That's something we'll have to work on again next year. And the ants. The ants came out. They weren't there when we were doing cleanup, and they came out to play with us. Phone contacts were 371 there. Digital 426. So these are the total contacts that were made for the regular stations. And you kind of get to see who were the top 10 scores. I didn't put everybody else down and just made a few, but to get an idea of some of them, John really put in the work this year. AI6W got quite a few. And then Bob, Min6 EMS over here, he got quite a bit. Spent a bit on the radio there. And so did Wayne, by the way. That's a lot of contacts for CW. Oh, good job, everybody contributing to that. On the GOTA station, Matt over here got the most contacts per individual on GOTA, which was fantastic. Great showing. He was consistent after everybody. He was very patient the whole time. After everybody was done, he got on the air, and then we stayed at it until I was falling asleep after midnight. So, good job. And then, of course, Tracy, Sal's daughter, and she was pretty busy on it. She came back a couple times and kept going. And the youth made quite a bit too, and especially Jaden. He was just a pro already. He got on there and went to town with his dad, and I just got to sit back and enjoy it. So 121 go to contacts. Give you an idea of how the bands were. A little different this year for the bands. Seems like that solar flare was coming around and playing with us and not really give you a little look for a little bit. It would fade in and out. You'll notice that we didn't really use 80 meters very much, and that's fairly typical, but we did make some. 40 meters was where a lot of activity was at, a little bit. That thing was, it was a little long, so it was stuck around for a while. 20 meters, as usual, most of the activity. 15 was not too bad. It was fading in and out. I don't know if anybody noticed, but you park and bark on a station, and then suddenly another station from the East Coast was sitting right on top of you, and that happened throughout the day all the time. So it faded in and out. No contacts on 10 meters. It was just blown out. And then a little bit on 6 for digital. That was good effort there. Not much on phone for that. And you can see the others. 2 meters had a few. There weren't a lot of people on VHF. Brian attended that station the full time, and along with everybody else, there just wasn't a lot of people on VHF this year within our range. So our point structure, every year it changes just a little bit. This year, one of the changes was the safety officer. They didn't give us the points for that. They don't do points for in your Class A station this year. Things like that are always changing. So, by the way, just because of how the scoring system works, it takes a lot to get all of the documentation and everything you need behind the scenes. I worked with Dennis this year for the first time, really getting into it, and it is a challenging job to sort through the rules and make sure we have everything covered. But we did leave some points on the table here, a couple hundred points. And you can see from previous years how we've done in the past. This goes back over 10 years now, right? So this is, I don't know what the scores were before 2014, if we had anything formalized, but this is what the records we have. And as we go down, it's been steady improvement all these years, and last year was an exceptional year. If you look at that right there, that score was amazing. And it's a big leap over the previous year, so fantastic from last year. So how did we do this year? Not quite like last year. It was a different score, no doubt about it. So we fell, if you want to look at it, we fall somewhere right in between here. This is where we were at. So for the first time in a while, we took a step backward on terms of scoring. Again, I think some of the band conditions were a little bit off and a little bit weird. Maybe we could have organized our way around that a little bit better, but that's something we need to look at. So that's where we are with our score this year. This is our submitted score, the prelim, basically. They still have to approve it. Again, all behind the scenes, pulling this stuff together, getting the proof, the documentation, and all this is actually pretty hard work. It takes a lot to put it together. So, of course, as always, we do have a lot of people that are involved. The whole club is involved at different levels. But there are a few key people, including food procurement, cooking prep, Mark, Gareth, Gary, Brian, and Lynn. Fantastic job as always with the food, which seems to be, I don't know, that's a hit every year, and that works out really well. But this year was really good. The food was amazing. IT support and logging. Again, we had no hiccups this year, save one. There was I guess it was the UPS that we had hooked up. Had a little bit of noise that we noticed on there. We finally figured it out. And once that got disconnected, it was fine. That would be the only thing about IT and logging. But the computers worked great. The new computers and the work they did in advance made that run very smoothly. So no problems with the network. Dave, N6 OJJ there, he had a heck of a time figuring out our new patch panel. But I think the patch panel made a big difference in terms of just ease of moving around once we got it set up and figured out. And again, thanks for the station managers who brought their radios, and maybe some of you haven't cleaned yours yet. But it does take a little time to get the dust and everything out of there and let everyone's fingers run all over them, but it's worthwhile. It's a lot of time to put radios together, bring them out to the field, set them up, pack them back up again, bring them home, and then eventually get around to cleaning them. So I think everybody, especially in this case, I would say get a little more to Derek. He left his equipment there and went off to Europe. And so he let us play with his radios and was comfortable with that. And then, of course, as always, the campground and generator. And that's a very, very helpful thing. I don't know how we would do this elsewhere. I mean, we might have enough batteries in the club to pull something off. At this point, I think enough people have 100 amp hour batteries that we could probably pull something off. But that generator sure makes life easy.
It only took 7 gallons.
So you guys know, this is what, a
45 kW.
45 kW generator, diesel, runs the whole time. Take 7 gallons of fuel to run the entire field day.
2.5 days.
2.5 days. We're not drawing that much power. But at the same time, it's there, it works, it runs, and I don't know if that's the only time of the year it gets used, maybe once in a while for something else, but...
Well, every time the wind blows, it runs our shop and it burns a lot more than 7 gallons.
You have a lot heavier loads than we do, but very nice for that, and the distribution systems that come with it. So getting the power from the generator to the area, and it's not a noisy generator. It is where it's located at, the distance from it, it's background noise you barely hear when you're doing radio. So it's nothing big at all.
I'm concerned that it doesn't put out enough power, though.
Were you running a little short on VHF?
Let people know what 45 kW.
45 kW was.
Ring what we're running.
Yeah. Definitely not needed for amateur radio. And then the antennas and organization. The antennas are actually a big deal. Part of that is getting everybody just having their antennas and donating them for use, but also setting them up. It is a big deal to set those antennas up, and it's one of the things we'll go through and on our lessons learned. But it's fantastic. There's the space, and a good plan helps with that. So, bottom line is, did we have fun on this field day? Yeah, I think we had a lot of fun. I think a lot of our newer members of the club really got their first exposure to what a really nice HF setup is like. And we're all very welcoming, and all of them have reported back to me that they were quite comfortable hanging out with us and getting on the air, and they learned quite a bit. So that was a big deal.
My spouse had a
Right. So your wife had a great time. She got on the air. She did great, by the way. So it's a lot of fun to get people out there. But also, I noticed everybody that were not on radios, there was a lot of visiting going on. And we do this quite a bit. The weather was nice. We didn't have to worry about any air conditioning problems or whatnot, so it was fantastic.
I was just going to comment that socially, I mean, this is my first time going to an SFARC one, but it really did feel like a social club that had a radio problem.
That's what it really is. We're a social club with a radio problem. Not a bad problem to have. But we did learn a lot, as we do every year. When we mixed up our plan, Brian came through and we built another 2-element 40-meter Yagi. And that was pointed east, as we expected we would come in and pretty well on the east, and we did. But we learned also that we got most of California with that 40-meter beam with a little bit of NVIS and off the side of that beam. So it's kind of an interesting setup, and it was, I think, by accident that it happened that way, but it was favorable to us. We didn't block anyone behind us, so a lot of our California contacts came through 40 meters and that antenna. The other thing is we need to have contingency plans for, as we go through stuff, for key individuals. So we have our leadership, somebody volunteers to do this or that. plans change. Example, Derek. But also, I think Mark had to leave for a while. He had a little emergency, and people stepped up right into place and finished up the meal, thank goodness. I wouldn't have been able to finish up cooking all that. So thankfully we had a plan for that. But it makes us think about what would we do if we have, something that we need to consider, stepping up. Something happens. And we need to catch all the points. We missed a couple those were avoidable. We just needed a battery to hook up for a little while. And we've gotten that natural power, for example, bonus. And satellite, we didn't catch the satellite one. Something we learned this year, and this is particular, and I think this was my fault as we were going forward with it. We were competing a little bit with planning for hot RF nights for attention. And what we needed to do was secure earlier commitments for the teams, not only just to keep the teams organized, but also to go through the roles that they have, plenty of time to get people coached up, and to get them there earlier in the day during the setup. Now, people came and kind of trickled in and showed up, and we got the setup going. And it was remarkable how well it went once we had it, but we were all up and running in time for the W1AW, the first messages to come through, and we were all able to record that. But it would have been much easier and less of a rush had we had our team's commitments a little bit better planned. And then again, backup plans for critical leads, something that this year I think came up probably for the first time. There are some critical situations we need to be able to have that ironed out. Now, this is applying to scoring. And really, I say take photos and upload sooner. We were digging and scrambling for photos and calling people to find the photo we needed to prove that the presentation existed, that we had, the generator, those kinds of things. Got to remember to run around the whole area and take specific photos, and then get the documentation needed for all of that. WinLink stuff, might as well just print all that stuff out or scan it right away and have it ready to go. Stuff like that. So we could add that. I'll put that in the spreadsheet for next year for the to-do list to make sure everything's accumulated for points. So at the end of field day, when we took everything down, we had fantastic teamwork. That was, I think, the biggest highlight of both the setup and the teardown. We had our largest teardown crew stick around until the very end, which was incredibly helpful for those of us that are left there with, people kind of trickling away. Everybody stuck around. They got the job done. You'll see the photo. We took that photo, right before we took off for field day, and all of them stayed here in a minute. But that was incredibly helpful. So anytime we have setup, get there early, and you already have your team going. So once your team is organized, you can get started. And then when it comes to tear down, those of you that can stick around, stay for the entire end of it until the last person rolls out, and it's nice. It worked out really well this year. Greatly appreciate that. And this photo right here of the crew that was taken right before teardown, all of you stayed for the entire teardown. So I want to give a big thank you for that, and a big round of applause for that crew. We appreciate it all. So again, some of the highlights, we'll go back to it as we see it. We had some new go-to-people, Tracy and her sister Kelly. They had a lot of fun working together again. But there wasn't much for me to do. Kelly was teaching Tracy. They had their own interaction. They're very competitive, so they had fun. And then Matt really just stayed on it for a long time as we go through it. That was fun. And of course, working with your wife. And then the patch panel, new thing. Everybody has it. We're working that up. The patch panel right here is brand new this year. We hope that's something that will be around for a long time. It's built to last, so whatever future iterations come up, it can be useful for other events too. as we do stuff. So a long time coming for that. We also stayed under budget. That's a really nice thing. So we did have a bigger cushion in the budget this year, and we knew we wanted to buy some equipment, but we keep things on it. Food costs were not as high as we anticipated, so that was a good thing. When we first were doing the budget last year and planning, inflation was pretty high. We thought meat prices were going to be extra and eggs and all of that, but that came down. So the budget stayed within a very nice region. So I think that's it. Do we have any questions, any thoughts that are out there?
Yeah, on our DX contacts, were those mostly done by FTA, or what mode was mostly responsible for those, for that? The DX contact?
On the DX contacts, I think they were mostly FDA and CW, and a few phone. GOTA made a few. We made Puerto Rico a couple of times. Let's see, who else did we make? That was DX. I gotta go look at it to remember. I'm going by memory on that.
We made Canada on 6 meters, eh?
Hey?
Hey?
You know, it was funny. Tracy was super excited that she got Manitoba. There aren't many hands in Manitoba, and we got Manitoba on GOTA. But largely FDA helps us reach out to that.
Jeff, there's a lot of people waiting for DXCC that haven't gotten that.
Yeah, exactly. I think, you know, there's stories about this, but most people's first DXCC ends up being at field day, when we're playing around with the radios or when they finally get on the air and get to do stuff. So their very first time they get on the air, it's all over the world when you're hanging out. Although we weren't hearing everything this much. The sun was just pointed the wrong way for us for that. Yeah. Any other questions?
And Jeff, everybody did an awesome job. One thing that really helped is creating a job action sheet for each of the lead positions. That way, anybody who takes over knows exactly, I have a checkbox in front of me. I do X, Y, and Z, and they can make life a lot easier for, like, how to use that patch panel, how to do a lot of these things, to create these laminated job action sheets, or just a real simple thing to do, so you could literally, so like when Mark left, someone could step right in and know exactly what they need to do, because there's a checklist of how things run. And we use it all the time in our department operations center. Every position has a job action sheet.
That's been brought up before, and we need to do that. I agree with you. The only problem is somebody's got to put that together and put the job action sheets. They might not know it. It'd be worth spending some time, and I am trying to build this spreadsheet this year that kind of follows the Hamfest planning protocols that Orion put together that spreadsheet. First, Aaron did his own improvements. I'm taking that and applying the same principles to it so that all that data is in one spot, and we can upload that to the server, and we have it.
Yeah, and you can find these templates out there on the interweb, and they're not meant to be long and wordy. They're just meant like 1 or 2 sentences. Do this, next item, do that, and so it's a real simple thing. It's not a complicated thing to create. I think what happens when people look at it, oh my God, this is a big task, and the reality of it not.
Yeah, I agree with you, and we can post those, and then they're available for people to look at that we're asking, hey, think you could be a team lead here? You should have that. So I'll make sure that's written up. They're not that difficult to do. It's just a matter of getting it all done and getting out reviewed. So, any other comments, questions? Matt?
Trying to get more ambient light. I know that everybody wants to be able to have a nice dark world for their screen, etc. But just, you know, I think a few people were wandering around with inadequate flashlights. We'll just leave it at that.
Right, because that's a good point to bring up, the tiny bit of a little more routine ambient light around there. One of the things we always think about as hams is what kind of interferences we're going to get, so the kind of lights we choose matter. But we could use a little more light on the ground, especially, I don't know, maybe some landscape lighting, but they're just cords for people to trip over. So there's a lot. We're concerned about safety.
A couple people mentioned to me that we should hold aside handicap parking area because we had several people attend that really had to park some distance. And so I think we just need to put that into our plan.
Yep, I think that's a really good one. Handicap parking area, or, yeah. That's a tough terrain, regardless of who you are. You want them to be able to pull up and get offload, and then maybe somebody can go park their car. Some kind of a plan for the mobility issues that people have. Maybe a golf cart, who knows?
Or two.
Or two. For the people that parked over on the RV side, great job on all of that. I guess it was happening over there, right? Smitty gave a big thumbs up and an A-OK. We had a lot of RVs. They were over there. Never heard them. You guys were partying, but we didn't know.
Passed out.
Slept well.
I see Smitty didn't bring her 50 watts. So.
Any other comments or questions? Well, I will say that behind the scenes, getting all the documentation together, I watched Dennis do it this year. We were working hand in hand on this stuff, and it can be very confusing, the point structure, as you read through stuff. So you've got to be very, very careful about how we submit points for anybody who does that in the future. I know Dennis is retiring from that, so we have to make sure we do that right.
You said it earlier, but I just want to call out these two guys right here, Mr. EMS, Bob #2, and Scott. We had some issues with hydration, and truthfully, it was hot.
Oh, yeah.
It was very hot. And truthfully, I started to get really embarrassed to admit. I started to get faint, and I started to get kind of lightheaded. And these guys jumped on it, saw it, and gave me some liquid IV, and it was good. They were really attentive. They were there, and this is my first experience having safety officers there, but they were invaluable.
Well,
And we had some bee stings too.
Yes.
Oh,
we had,
God,
we,
we had
we,
a
we had
bee sting.
two
Oh,
bee
I heard
stings.
about the whole weekend.
Thanks for reminding me, that was a little traumatic.
that's funny. Well, you know, it helps that we have really professional people doing that. This is what they do for a living, and they recognize it sooner. So it's very, very helpful. And I was given bottles of water when I absolutely needed them, because I was ignoring that and knew I needed it. So I appreciate that for sure.
Thank you, Jeff and Smitty.
Yeah, great job, Smitty, with PIO stuff, keeping the ball rolling on everyone's mind. So I appreciated it. So, all right, guys, thank you very much. I appreciated it, and we'll just continue enjoying field days every year. They're always fun. We had a great time. I think it was a comfortable, relaxed vibe that people were very happy just to be there. So I appreciate it.
All right.
One more time for the entire field day crew. Thank you, Jeff.